Church, I want to begin today by drawing your attention to something that has shaken parts of the world in recent days.
Chapter 1. The Spark of the Engine. In the beginning, humanity discovered the silent power of numbers. Long before machines, numbers were used not only to count but to foresee. Ancient priests studied the heavens, calculating the paths of the stars to predict the flooding of the Nile, the changing of seasons, and the moments of eclipses that terrified empires. From Babylonian tablets to the Mayan calendar, numbers became more than symbols. They became keys to unlocking the future. The first great tool of numbers was the abacus, born in Mesopotamia and perfected across Asia. With it, traders forecast profit, generals planned provisions, and astronomers charted movements of the skies. It was simple, yet it turned invisible possibilities into visible truths. For the first time, mankind used mathematics as a mirror of destiny. In the 17th century, the burden of endless calculation fell heavy on the shoulders of scientists and tax collectors. A boy genius, Blaise Pascal, saw his father struggle with complex sums. Driven by compassion and brilliance, Pascal built a small wooden box of interlocking gears, the Pascaline. With a twist of handles, it could add and subtract without human error. For merchants, it was a convenience. For kings, a weapon of foresight. With devices like the Pascaline, governments could predict budgets, debts, and the cost of war. Numbers, once slow and fragile in the human hand, were now accelerated by machine. Yet Pascal's invention was only a flicker of light compared to what came next. In the 19th century, Charles Babbage stood at the crossroads of the Industrial Revolution. Surrounded by factories and the thunder of steam engines, he envisioned a machine that would harness the power of industry not to spin cotton or drive locomotives, but to calculate the future itself. His difference engine was designed to compute complex mathematical tables, astronomical charts, navigation guides, and actuarial predictions, without error. To the British Empire, this meant ships could cross oceans more safely, artillery could fire more precisely, and economic futures could be calculated with certainty. To Babbage, it was a glimpse of a greater destiny. From his restless imagination came the analytical engine. Unlike the difference engine, this was no single-purpose calculator. It would contain a mill to process numbers, a store to remember them, and the ability to follow sequences of instructions. It was, in truth, the first design for a general-purpose computer. With it, not only tables of stars or navigational routes could be predicted, but entire systems of knowledge could be explored. Standing beside Babbage was a visionary who saw further still, Ada Lovelace, daughter of the poet Lord Byron. Gifted in mathematics, she studied Babbage's plans and declared that his machine was more than a calculator. Numbers, she wrote, did not only stand for quantities. They could symbolize anything: letters, music, even logic itself. With instructions, the machine could weave patterns of meaning, much as the Jacquard loom wove flowers into silk. She wrote the first true algorithm, a sequence of operations for a machine that did not yet exist. In her notes, she foresaw that one day such engines could compose music, create art, and simulate thought itself. She hinted that numbers, when processed by machines, could move beyond prediction of the physical world into the prediction of ideas, even human behavior. But the world was not ready. Babbage's engines remained unfinished, too costly and complex for the age of steam. Ada's writings lay dormant, their significance ignored by a century drunk on coal and iron. And yet, their vision endured. For from the abacus to the Pascaline, from Babbage's gears to Lovelace's algorithms, one truth emerged. Numbers were no longer only tools of merchants and astronomers. They had become the language of prophecy, a means of seeing ahead, of simulating futures not yet born. The abacus had become gears. The gears had become prophecy. And though the analytical engine never roared to life, its shadow marked the beginning of a new destiny, the long road toward the first machine mind. By the 20th century, the world had grown faster, louder, and deadlier. Numbers were no longer only the tools of merchants, priests, or astronomers. They had become instruments of survival and power. Wars were fought not only with swords and guns, but with codes, predictions, and calculations. In Britain, as the shadow of World War II fell across Europe, a quiet genius named Alan Turing stared at the seemingly impossible problem of the Enigma machine, used by the Nazis to encrypt their communications. The enemy's numbers were tangled in millions of permutations, a wall of chaos designed to hide intentions. But Turing, inspired by the vision of earlier pioneers like Babbage and Lovelace, saw beyond the surface. He imagined a machine that could think in numbers, that could systematically test possibilities faster than any human mind. He designed the bomb, a mechanical marvel that would sift through combinations and reveal the enemy's plans. With it, numbers became weapons. Predictions that had once been impossible, submarines, positions, bombing targets, troop movements, became clear. Turing had transformed the abstract language of mathematics into a tool to foresee and shape the future of nations. Across the Atlantic, American engineers were racing on a parallel mission. In Philadelphia, the ENIAC, Electronic Numerical Integrator and Computer, was being assembled. Towering and humming with vacuum tubes, it could perform calculations faster than hundreds of human clerks. Its original purpose was deadly practical, computing artillery firing tables for the U.S. Army. But every table, every trajectory, was a calculation of future events. A machine turning numbers into predictions of where shells would fall, where battles might be won or lost. These machines were more than calculators. They were oracles of war. They could see patterns invisible to human eyes, reducing uncertainty and transforming chaos into knowledge. And yet, the promise of Turing and ENIAC hinted at something far greater: machines that could learn, adapt, and simulate the unfolding of reality itself. While the world burned, the foundations of a new age were being laid. The supercomputers of tomorrow were already whispering their potential. They would not only calculate, they would model, predict, and reason. From Babbage's analytical engine to Turing's bomb, the human dream of creating a thinking machine had survived centuries of doubt, expense, and war. And in the quiet corners of laboratories, engineers began to imagine a future where numbers were not only tools of prediction, but the language of intelligence itself. Numbers could anticipate not just battles, but entire systems, weather, economies, even human behavior. The seeds of modern artificial intelligence, the machines that would one day see, speak, and decide, had been planted in the logic of war. From abacus to gears, from prophecy to code, humanity had learned a profound truth. The universe could be read, calculated, and predicted if one had the courage to build a machine to understand it. The stage was set. The world's first supercomputers were coming, and with them, a new era where numbers would no longer just describe the world, they would shape its destiny.